The following news flash is brought to you by the Lone Star Lowdown, providing your daily bulletins for the commodities market. Today in history, news updates, and the inside scoop into the tides of the alternative. Markets for Monday the 15th of February 2015 are currently trading with gold at $1,206.20 an ounce, silver $15.29 an ounce, Texas crude $29.44 a barrel, and Bitcoin is currently sitting at about 397 U.S. currency. Today in history, February 15th, 399 BCE. The philosopher Socrates is today thought to have been sentenced to death by the city of Athens. Found guilty of both corrupting the minds of the youth and of impiety and not believing the gods of the state, he was subsequently sentenced to death by drinking a mixture of hemlock, a poisonous plant, to humans. In recent news, former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert became the first Israeli premier to be incarcerated. He started serving a 19-month prison sentence for bribery and obstruction of justice today, walking into the Masyahu prison in central Israel shortly after releasing a video making a last-minute attempt at retaining a legacy. At this hour, it is important for me to say again, he stated in the video, I reject outright all the corruption allegations against me. He was convicted in March of 2014 in a wide-ranging case that accused him of accepting bribes to promote a controversial real estate project in Jerusalem, which led to his forced resignation in 2009. He was initially sentenced to 6 years, but the Israeli Supreme Court upheld a lesser charge, lowering the sentence to 18 months only. Omar is also awaiting a ruling in an appeal in a separate case in which he was sentenced to 8 months in prison for unlawfully accepting money from a U.S. supporter. Former prison officials did state that Omar would be treated like any other inmate, despite being held in a special wing for security reasons, an assertion we are sure is completely true. A joint effort between 5 Australian agencies reportedly conducted one of the largest drug busts in the nation's history after finding $900 million worth of liquid methamphetamine. Sydney Morning Herald reported that this investigation began after the raiding and seizure of a shipping container in December, which was revealed to be transporting 86 boxes of bra inserts holding 190 liters of liquid meth, while an additional 530 more liters of liquid meth were found and confiscated hidden within art supplies amongst 5 storage units in Sydney. The estimated street value of the drugs are roughly around $1.26 billion in Australian dollars. 3 Hong Kong nationals and 1 Chinese national were charged with their involvement in the importation and manufacturing of these drugs. This was your lowdown for February 15th, 2016.
Welcome, everyone. This is Agenda 21 Talk. I'm Don. Shannon couldn't make it tonight again. And so this is Tuesday, February the 16th, 2016. So that's the date where you are. Call in 512-646-1984. And love to hear from you. And tell us, like I said last week, tell us kind of direction you'd like to go. We still do law stuff. Sometimes we talked about it a lot. I talked about it like last time. How was it, the basic philosophy we go by. And it's, not just us, not that we're brilliant or anything, but it's just, you just do the basics. Just get with the basics and what you do in the law stuff, whether it's traffic tickets or code enforcement or whatever, you just find out what they're doing wrong, and that requires you to do study. You have to find out, read the laws, the actual laws, read the definitions of the words, like the definition of the word person, a lot of them like that, words like that. And then you'll find out who it applies to, where it applies. If you want your name written in all capital letters, that's your business. I don't like that. It's not the way my name is written. So we deal with that. So anyway, if that's what you're interested in, we can talk more about that. I'm, like I said, last week, I think I'm more interested in where we are in the stream of time, because time's getting short. Talk to people all day long. Well, I talk to people, not that I'm talking about this all day long, but I talk to people, and a lot of them don't believe the end of the world's coming, don't believe Jesus is returning. A lot of them are atheists. Today, atheism tends to abound. I think I just read an article last week that 0 people in Iceland believe God created the earth. They're all evolutionists in Iceland. I don't know how many people that is, maybe 1 million, maybe less than 1 million people in Iceland. Not a whole lot of people there. But they all don't believe in God created the earth, whether they call themselves Christians or not. So anyway, that's the world we live in. Things are changing very, very rapidly. Talk to my son. He's 27? He's born in 89. This is 2016. So he's more worried about losing jobs to automation. Won't need truck drivers anymore. There'll be automated cars, and his job may be automated out. So he's more worried about that. He's kind of thinks Bernie Sanders got some good ideas, free everything, free education, all that stuff. Education doesn't necessarily have to be free; it just has to be reasonably priced, and it's way overblown. Colleges got greedy. They invested in the companies making loans, so they had an invested interest for jacking the rates up. And now it's way out of proportion to what it should be to keep the lights on and pay professors. And so it's difficult to get a college education because you go so far into debt you can never pay it off. It's extremely hard to. And that's just one of the ways that they have to control you. If I was an evil genius, that's kind of what I'd do. Hey, make it so people can't be educated. It's easier to control uneducated people. It worked really well in the Dark Ages, and that's where we're going. As I said, we're heading for the Dark Ages. If everything was left alone, if God didn't interfere, we would be back in the Dark Ages in a few years. It's my view. I'm sticking with it. We'll talk about the Bible and stuff, and just I don't know, all kinds of stuff, headlines in the news. And so we're talking about our agenda, my agenda for the 21st century. Calling with the comments, questions. We are streaming on logosradionetwork.com. It's a good website. Go to it. It's got a chip in button if you want to contribute to the programming on this network. Chip in some money. They're giving away a free gun, and enroll for that. And there's Eddie Craig's traffic seminar, and it's Randy Kelton, Eddie Craig, Dipper Stevens. He's done a tremendous amount of work finding out what you have to do, but you still have to study his stuff. He's done a lot of work for you, but you still have to do some work yourself. So get it, and it will jumpstart you into knowing legal stuff. Our email address is agenda21talk@yahoo.com. Email us. The 2 and the 1 are numbers, so it's agenda21talk@yahoo.com, with the 2 and the 1 being numbers. We got all kinds of stuff I could send you on traffic tickets or code enforcement or rights, or some Bible stuff I've written. And the Bible stuff I've written is 99% the Bible and just a little bit of historical explanation from me that you can look up. So it's all the Bible. It's not me. So the Bible will tell you who the beast is. So you will, if we said, I've read it on the show before, we'll do it again because it's extraordinarily important. And it's one of the headlines I'm going to read in a minute is that guy that all of the reformers, 100% of them, Martin Luther, and if you're Baptist, Roger Williams. Is that his name? Roger, yeah. Started the Baptist Church in America, who came up with the separation of church and state. He believed the papacy was the Antichrist. They all did anyway. But we can read it. He's going to be he's in Mexico now. He went to Cuba. They looked at the headlines, but he was going to meet with the Russian Orthodox, and they were going to kiss and make up. And I had an atheist, tell me they're never going to do that. It's not going to happen. It's going to happen. If it hadn't already, it will. This wasn't just the first step. This is a major step. So they met in Cuba. The Pope wanted the United States to recognize Cuba again and drop the blockade. So we did. Obama did. He complied, did what he was told. My atheist friend, he doesn't believe that happened, but I've read you the news where it's not right-wing tin hat news. This is aluminum foil hat people. This was AP, the Associated Press, and Reuters and all that talked about the secret behind, basically they call it the papacy wanting the United States to recognize Cuba. So he's in Cuba. Now he's in Mexico. And he had promised to stand on the border on the Mexican side to show solidarity with immigrants. He wants unbridled, unfettered immigration into these different countries, Europe and America. So anyway, that's what that is. So first news headline, got to read this. This is brand new, putting this ahead of some of the other stuff. It's February the 16th, 2016. This is from Ars Technica UK version of that group, and it's arstechnica.co.uk. They have an article that says the NSA Skynet program may be killing thousands of innocent people. So what is the Skynet program? And that is a drone. Well, it's a cell phone intercept program that they used in Pakistan and Afghanistan and various countries to monitor all the cell phone usage to determine. They gather all this metadata. They mine it with deep learning artificial intelligence algorithms to pick out who's a terrorist and who isn't. Now, how did they do that? Well, let's read about it a little bit. And then they use Raptors, drones, to kill people. just based on their cell phone usage. And I'm trying to make sure I don't run into the break. In 2014, so I probably won't finish this, but in 2014, the former director of both the CIA and the NSA proclaimed would kill people based on metadata. He was proud of it. Now, a new examination of previously published Eric Snowden documents suggests that many of these people may have been innocent. Last year, The Intercept published documents. The Intercept is the magazine, online magazine, published documents detailing the NSA Skynet program. According to the document, Skynet engages in mass surveillance of Pakistan's mobile phone network and then uses a machine learning algorithm on the cellular network metadata of 55 million people to try and rate each person's likelihood of being a terrorist. Patrick Ball, a data scientist and director of the research at the Human Rights Data Analysis Group, who has previously given expert testimony before war crimes tribunals, had described the NSA's methods as ridiculously optimistic and completely BS. They spell it out here, but it's a family show, so I'll just say BS. A flaw or, bovine excrement stuff. Anyway, a flaw in how the NSA trains Skynet's machine learning algorithm to analyze cellular metadata, Ball told ours, makes the result scientifically unsound. Somewhere between 2,500 and 4,000 people have been killed by drone strikes in Pakistan alone since 2004. Most of them were classified by the U.S. government as extremists. The Bureau of Investigative Journalism reported. Based on the classification date of 2007, 1 and 8, and that's the way they write the date, so that's the 8th month, or is that the first month of 2007, the 8th of the month anyway, on the Skynet slide decks, which Snowden released, which themselves appear to date from 2011 and 2012. Those figures are based on. I won't read all of the nitty-gritty details, but the thing is they capture all this metadata. They measure, let's see. In addition to process log cellular phone call data, the DNR dialed number recognition, such as time, duration, and who you called. Skynet also collects user location, allowing for the creation of detailed travel profiles. Turning off a mobile phone gets flagged as an attempt to evade mass surveillance. So they consider you bad if you turn your phone off. Users who swap SIM cards, naively believing this will prevent tracking, also get flagged because the ESN, MEID, and the IMEI protocols basically burned into the handset make the phone trackable across multiple SIM cards. So there's a slide there. They monitor your travel phrases, reported regular repeated visits to locations of interest, low use, incoming calls only, that gets flagged, excessive SIM or handset swapping, courier, machine learning models, because they look for couriers. They look for travel on particular days of the week, co-travelers, who's traveling with you, similar travel patterns to other phones, common contacts, visits to airports, other countries, overnight trips, or a permanent move. All that gets flagged. And the deal is they've killed thousands of people just based on the data, and they could be probably innocent. They don't have to have any proof that they're terrorists. Just because of cell phone usage, they send the drone over and kill you. Given the complete set of metadata, Skynet pieces together people's typical daily routines. Just read about that. The program, the slides tell us, let me make sure we're not coming up on a break. Yeah, I'm coming up on a break. I'll just finish this after the break. Call in number 512-646-1984. I want to hear from you. I want you to, I know you trying to figure out how to say this. Call in with your suggestions of who we can have as guests on the show. I know people have called in, made some suggestions, but, I'm kind of picky sometimes on who I have on the show. I used to have people I didn't agree with just to have them on the show. Now I'm kind of more careful. So if I don't use your suggestions, don't take it personally. Don't get mad or anything. But call in with your suggestions. I sure appreciate it. 512-646-1984. And it is February the 16th, 2016.
You are listening to the Logos Radio Network. LogosRadioNetwork.com.
Welcome back. This is Agenda 21 Talk. Call in number 512-646-1984. Call in if it happens to be February the 16th, the day after, a couple of days after Valentine's Day. I won't go into that, but hope everybody had a good, safe, romantic Valentine's Day. Okay, getting back to I was laughing during break myself. My wife's listening to the show. She's worried that our cell phones listen in on us, and this is not going to make it any better. We have smartphones. I would rather have a flip phone. I had a flip phone, and when I was working in Tallahassee, Alabama, the service, Verizon service, was really poor. I couldn't even get it in a little motel I was staying in. So we thought the transmitter, basically, on the smartphone would be more powerful, and it kind of was to a small extent. But anyway, I like the flip phone. But they track all this crap on you. And we're just talking about doing this in Pakistan, but aren't they doing it all over? Aren't they doing it to us? They gather all this data. Will it only be a matter of time before they turn these drones on us? Okay. The slides tell us that the program is based on the assumption that the behavior of terrorists differs significantly from that of ordinary citizens with respect to some of these properties, like how they travel or what. However, as the Intercept expose last year made clear, the highest rated target according to this machine learning program was Ahmad Zadhan, Al Jazeera's longtime bureau chief in Islamabad, Pakistan. So because he travels around and talks to people, he's the highest person on their list. So that didn't work. Maybe he is a terrorist, I don't know, but that just because his job requires him to do things that are flagged. As the Intercept reported, Zadhan frequently travels to regions well known in terrorist activity in order to interview insurgents and report the news. But rather than questioning the machine learning that produced such a bizarre result, the NSA engineers behind the algorithm instead trumpeted Zadhan as an example of Skynet's success in their in-house presentation, including a slide that labeled Zadhan a member of Al-Qaeda. Now, probably he isn't, but who knows? Maybe he is in the background. But whether he is or not, his job, even if he wasn't, his job would take him to these places anyway, because he's a reporter. Feeding the machine is this next section is labeled training a machine learning algorithm is like training a Bayesian spam filter. Now, that doesn't tell you anything unless you know what the Bayesian equation is in your mathematics. But anyway, you feed it known spam, or you feed it known data, and you feed it some stuff that you know is not spam or is not in the data set. From these ground truths, and of course you tell it this is what it is, the algorithm then learns how to filter spam correctly. Well, it can come close. It'll miss things, but anyway. They do the same thing with handwriting recognition at the post office. They give it all kinds of different writing letter. People have written the letter A, and from typed to all the different versions of handwriting, and they tell it this is the letter A, and they show it thousands of these, and then they show it thousands of letters Q and D and whatever that kind of look like an A, and it has to find the A out of the handwritten alphabet, and it can come pretty close. In the same way, a critical part of Skynet's program is feeding the machine learning algorithm known terrorists in order to teach the algorithm to spot similar profiles. So you have to have a known data set of these terrorists, and these terrorists did these things. They traveled here, they turned their phones off there, they changed the SIM cards here. They don't have that information. The problem is that there are relatively few known terrorists to feed in the algorithm. And real terrorists are unlikely to answer a hypothetical NSA survey into the matter. The internal NSA document suggests that Skynet uses a set of known couriers as ground truth and assume by default that the rest of the population is innocent. Pakistan has a population of around 192 million people, with about 120 million cellular handsets at the end of 2012. The NSA analyzed 55 million of those mobile phone records, given 80 variables on 55 million Pakistani mobile phone users. There's far too much to do manually, so they feed it into this big churning algorithm, and it spits stuff out. So I'm going to skip down. And this is probably too technical, but to do this, the Skynet algorithm uses a random forest algorithm. Anyway, the whole gist of it is it can't pick out a terrorist because you can't train it on what a known terrorist is. And so false positives. Can't be sure, of course, that the 50%, Skynet, let's read this. The slides presented by Snowden evaluate the results with a threshold set to a 50% false negative rate. At this rate, half of the people would be classified as terrorists are instead classified as innocent. In order to keep the number of false positives, innocents falsely classified as terrorists, as low as possible. It says we can't be sure, of course, that the 50% false negatives rate chosen for this presentation is the same threshold used to generate the kill list. Regardless, the problem of what to do with innocent false positives remain. And then it goes into a bunch of technical jargon of how they do it. And the end result is completely BS, according to researchers who've analyzed this. And the reason I'm going on and on about this is because I believe eventually they're going to turn it on us. The NSA evaluates the Skynet program using a subset of 100,000 randomly selected people identified by their MSIDN or MSA pairs of their mobile phones. In other words, it's a protocol that the cell phone uses. And a known group of 7 terrorists out of 100,000. They have a training data set of 7, and that's statistically invalid. It's horrible. It's crap. The NSA then trained the learning algorithm by feeding it 6 of the terrorists and tasking Skynet to find the 7th out of 100,000. This data provided the percentages for false positives in the slide above. First, there are very few known terrorists to be used to train the test model. If they are using the same records to train the model as they are using to test the model, their assessment of the fit is complete BS. The usual practice is to hold some of the data out of the training process so that the test includes records the model has never seen before. Without doing that, their classification assessment is ridiculously optimistic. So the point is, they've killed up to 4,000 people that they admit to. How many of those were actual really terrorists? Did they ever get on the ground and do research? No, they didn't do that. They've killed upwards of 4,000 people, maybe more. Who knows? Of fathers, mothers, children. Who knows? Just because of what their algorithm says. They'll send a drone over and kill. And it goes on to even more and more stuff. But that's the point I wanted to make. And they're doing it so I think they make a nice statement in here. If you're going to condemn someone to death, usually we have a beyond a reasonable doubt standard, which is not at all the case when you're talking about people with probable terrorist scores anywhere near the threshold. And that's assuming that the classifier works in the first place, which I doubt, because there simply aren't enough positive cases of known terrorists for a random forest test to get a good model of them. Well, they made a statement that it's easy to just look the other way because it's happening in a different country. But what if it happens here? If Google makes a mistake with their algorithm, if people see an ad for a car they don't want to buy, if the government makes a mistake, they kill innocent people. Innocence, they say. But it's easy to look the other way because it's in another country. But what's to keep them? But what happens if, here it is, killing people based on metadata is easy to ignore when it happens far away in a foreign land. But what happens when Skynet gets turned on us, assuming it hasn't been already? So anyway, that's the world we live in. I wanted to bring that story out. That's Ars Technica, how you pronounce it, UK version. Probably just search for the headline, NSA Skynet program may be killing thousands of innocent people on a ridiculously out-of-date, untrained algorithm. All right, this is Agenda 21 Talk. Calling number 512-646-1984.
Are you too clean for your own good? According to new research, being too conscientious about dirt and germs could actually make you sick. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht, and I'll be back with some antibacterial products you might want to avoid.
Privacy is under attack. When you give up data about yourself, you'll never get it back again. And once your privacy is gone, you'll find your freedoms will start to vanish too. So protect your rights, say no to surveillance, and keep your information to yourself. Privacy, it's worth hanging on to. This public service announcement is brought to you by StartPage.com, the private search engine alternative to Google, Yahoo, and Bing. Start over with StartPage.
A University of Michigan study suggests that antibacterial soaps and hand sanitizers could make your family sick. Many contain the chemical triclosan, an antimicrobial. Young people with higher levels of triclosan in their systems are more likely to be diagnosed with allergies and hay fever. Scientists believe the chemical may interfere with the body's immune system by mimicking or affecting human hormones. Triclosan may also prevent kids from dealing with everyday germs so they don't develop a natural immunity to them. So if you want a healthy clean, skip the antibacterial products and wash up with good old-fashioned soap and water. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht. More news and information at CatherineAlbrecht.com.
Looking for some truth? You found it. LogosRadioNetwork.com.
like yesterday.
Welcome back. This is Agenda 21 Talk on this February the 16th, 2016, streaming on logosradionetwork.com. Great network. I'm honored to be a part of it. Broadcasting with the truth. So many good shows on it. Some other internet networks may have more programs, but I don't think they have the quality of programs that Logos has. That's just my opinion. Maybe skewed. Anyway, go to logosradionetwork.com and chip in if you enjoy the programming and you want to keep, we're still using vacuum tubes, so we want to upgrade the transistors. So donate and we'll appreciate it. So on maybe a lighter side, kind of a downer that first segment, and didn't the Bible say that the beast would make fire come down from heaven? Kind of like a drone, kind of like all these weapons shooting people. I don't know, just that just occurred to me. On a lighter side, this is a discovery that they made that extraordinary success with new cancer treatment. This is unprecedented in medicine, to be honest. It's a miracle. Scientists seeking a cure for cancer, which I don't think they're ever going to cure because I've heard the word cancer is a trademark name of the American Cancer Society, and you can't cure it unless they say so. And there's too much money in not curing it, if you ask me. But scientists are seeking a cure for cancer. They found early trials of one treatment that sends in modified white blood cells to fight off certain types of disease that have produced extraordinary results, with 94% of the participants in one study seeing a complete disappearance of their symptoms. In that study, of 94% of acute lymphoblastic leukemia, patients treated with the modified cells called T cells said their symptoms vanished. In a separate study, 8% of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma patients saw positive results from the same treatment, while half reported their symptoms completely disappeared. They didn't say they were cured. It's just the symptoms went away. Now, I didn't catch that the first time I read it. This is extraordinary, said lead researcher Stanley Riddle with the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center in Seattle. Okay, now, that's the good part. What are they doing to these white blood cells? This is a simplistic view, and because that's all I know, of your immune system. You have white blood cells. So front line of defense, when you get a virus or bacteria, white blood cells run around. If it run out into something that isn't a red blood cell, it collects, it grabs it, eats it, and then flushes it out of your system to the lymph system, I believe. And your lymphatic system is the garbage dump. And of course, if you got cancer, it's going to be there, but it's taken care of. Anyway, when you get an infection, when you get enough bad things in your blood, and enough T cells white blood cells will grab up the bad things, gobble them up until they burst. They don't know when to stop gobbling. If you get enough of these bad things in your blood system and enough white blood cells are bursting because they're gobbling them up so much, then T cells come out. And T cells are from your thalamus, is that right? Some organ starts with a T, I think your thalamus. And they're white blood cells that have gone to college. White blood cells go into the thalamus, I think it is, and they stay there for years and they get trained. And then when you have an infection, when enough white blood cells burst, then these T cells come out. And so they have found a way to take the T cells and stick a molecule that are known to target cancer into the T cell, infuses them back into the T cell body, which is just a white blood cell. The molecules, which are chimeric antigen receptors, or CARs, then go to work and limit the ability of cancer cells to ward off the body's natural immune system. So these T cells that have this molecule stuck to it attack the tumor or cancer. Oh, this is lymphoma, so there's no tumor. They attack the cancer cell. And they say it's almost like it's almost like reprogramming the immune system, medical officials said. Now, I'm reading this, not just to say, look how the cure for cancer is right around the corner. Everything's fine. I'm reading this because it's a known fact that sugar reduces your immune system. You might as well use that result. But anyway, sugar reduces your immune system among the many tens of thousands of things we run into every day that reduce our immune system. I have heard from a medical doctor that according to the American Medical Association, the cancer growth rates for tumor-type cancers, a tumor has to be about the size of a pencil eraser, the eraser on the end of a pencil, about that size to be detected by our means. Now, they're getting better and better means to detect smaller and smaller tumors. And this was, 7, 8 years old. So But it has to be that big to be detected by our means. Now, they have some chemical means that may or may not detect cancer. There's a lot of false positives, so a lot of people go through chemo that don't really need it. I think I've heard of them. And so that's a bad thing. But to get to that size, according to the growth rates, if you go backwards, the cancer's been in your body for 6 to 10 years. 6 or 8 or 10 years, you've had cancer in your body. Your body has had that long to deal with it. But your immune system in our Western diet, with our crappy drugs we take and the junk food we eat and the smoking and the drinking and the drug taking, all compromise our immune system so they can't deal with that. Healthy people that eat healthily, and particular vegetarians that live longer, I mean, that's statistical, their white cells, their immune systems is sharp and works like a steel trap and captures those cancer cells. When you eat the wrong food, you have a lot of sugars from soft drinks and caffeine and things like that, your immune system's reduced, so it cannot fight that. So as this doctor said, I'd like to live to be 150 years old, have cancer cells in you, but they can't get anywhere, and they grow so slowly that, yeah, you may have cancer for 70 years, but it's no big deal because you're going to die before it can kill you because your immune system is keeping it suppressed. So I was just kind of chuckling, and this is great that they found something that may help cancer, but I was just chuckling. They didn't use any fancy drugs. They didn't use any chemotherapy. They just took the body's natural way of fighting and they gave it to these people. So why would you want to live a lifestyle that encourages cancer growth and hope that they produce some drug or some treatment like this to keep your cancer down? Wouldn't it make sense to alter your lifestyle to eat healthy fruits, nuts, vegetables, berries, raw food, organic, non-GMO stuff, hardly processed at all? And I do eat some processed stuff. Well, anyway, number of reasons, because I can't really cook here. But so I try to eat healthy, raw organic stuff. Change it to that. If you think that's bad, if you think you're going to be missing out. Oh, look what I'm missing. I'm missing cheese. They brought in a bunch of pizzas today, and I did not miss them at all. When I stopped eating cheese, my asthma went away. Amazing. Joint pain went away. Mucus went away. Sinus problems went away. Allergies went away. Why would I want that, eat that stuff, and have to take all the allergens, antihistamines that make you drowsy or make you feel crappy, and hope that they come up with cures for all the things, the bad food and the crap you're putting in your body are doing to you? Why don't you just get back to basics, eat properly, eat good, healthy foods, fruits, nuts, berries, vegetables, and you can make vegan cheese stuff. My wife makes really good cheese stuff out of cashews, raw cashews. You can do it. You can eat healthy. You can eat really good food. I don't even miss bacon. I hate the smell of bacon cooking. It's disgusting now. Sodium nitrate, it's just packed with nitrates. Why would you want to do that to yourself? Your body has been called the temple of God, temple of the Lord. There's a real temple in heaven, and then your body's been called a temple. Why would you want to do that to his body? It gives you life. Why tear it up? Anyway, I just thought that was funny. You can do the same thing by eating healthy and boosting your immune system. This is Agenda 21 Talk. Coming up on a break. Call-in number on this February the 16th is 512-646-1984. Our email is agenda21talk@yahoo.com.
Easy.
Welcome back. This is Agenda 21 Talk, February the 16th, 2016, 512-646-1984. All right, next I'm going to talk about the religion, Bible, God, Jesus. And I know I've lost some listeners because I talk about the Bible a lot. Not going to change that. I hope they come back. Pray they come back. I know I had one guy that emailed me would listen. I think he listened to archives or a podcast or rebroadcasts, but I don't think it was live. And he just couldn't understand why I thought the 3 woes in Revelation, particularly the first 2, were Islam, and just couldn't do it. And he sent me a whole bunch of stuff. I read some of it. It was just all recapitulation of the typical tribulation theory stuff which doesn't really make sense biblically, and it's not supported, I don't think, in the Bible. The Bible, off on a tangent here, but, Jesus returning to end sin and pick up the righteous, pick up his people, one of the greatest events since the creation. Well, maybe since probably the greatest event since creation was the death on the cross, paying the price of sin so that we who follow him can appear spotless as if we never sinned. He'll let you pay the price of sin yourself, the wages of sin or death. He'll let you do that, but he calls you, he pulls you, he draws you to him so that you won't have to do that. But maybe the second most sterling event, important event since creation, since the resurrection. Actually, the resurrection was even better. Then there's one of the top 10 anyway, would be the return of Jesus. Do you think that before he comes back, he would tell you in his word explicitly how he's coming back, who the characters would be, the events leading up to it in very specific, yet in parable form, or not in parables, but in images, things that rather than being a direct say, he would tell you in images. So, he communicates to us through visions a lot. And so we see things like John, the Revelator, and Daniel saw things. So what they saw were things that they knew about. The statue of Nebuchadnezzar, which is a human with a head, shoulders, arms, legs. And they also saw beasts, rams and he-goats and bears, lions with wings. Images like that represent countries because it tells you what they represent. So anyway, the point is, wouldn't God tell you in his word repeatedly, multiple times, specific information? And I believe he does, and I believe it's all throughout the Bible. And so with that in mind, if you look at, I did this just a few days ago because it always bothers me. I think about it. I know the three woes, the first two woes, in particular the second woe was the Ottoman Empire, because they predicted 2 years before its demise, they predicted the exact year and the exact day when it would go under, and the Ottoman Empire wasn't destroyed by a military action. It was a stroke of a pen. It was a treaty that ended the Ottoman Empire on exactly the date predicted, because the Bible said time prophecy in the book of Revelation. But beyond that, if you look at them, it describes in Revelation the woes being, the men would have hair of women and crowns of gold and stuff. So if you go on Google and you were to look at pictures, go to Google Pictures and do the Ottoman Empire and look at some of their soldiers. The shapes of the locusts were like unto horses prepared unto battle. Well, they prepared their horses. They had thousands of horses. They would come down in a swooping cavalry charge, back all of them with these big curved swords. And their horses had dressings on them. They had, I guess, mostly leather, but decorated with ornament, silver and whatever, with sides that came down in the saddle on top of that. But it was like the horses had some armor on them. They weren't armor, probably leather, but it helped protect their horses. And anyway, it was kind of cool. And that's all shown on the Google Pictures. You can do that. They had on their heads were, as it were, crowns of gold. Well, they wore helmets. Some of them were gold, helmet-like things, gold-plated, gold painted or whatever. Probably weren't so gold to be too heavy, but they did have helmets on them, and their faces were like the faces of men, so they were men. They had hair as the hair of women. Well, these Google Pictures do the Ottoman Empire. Their soldiers, they had long hair that went out under the helmet, spilled out over their shoulders onto their breastplates, and they had a little bit of armor on, not armor like the Knights of England, but they had thick leather armor thing just to help protect them. And they had breastplates, as it were, breastplates of iron. And they didn't have really iron because that'd be too heavy for the horse, but they had, as it were, iron breastplates decorated with iron. And but they had this what we would say now is a bulletproof vest. They wore stuff like that. And you go to Google Pictures, there it is. And the sound of their wings was the sound of chariots and of many horses running to battle. And that's exactly what they did. Thousands of them, 5,000 or 10,000, would swoop down on a town or on their enemies. And they had tails like scorpions, and their stings in their tails, and their power was to hurt men for 5 months. So we know exactly how long it was. And then further down the time prophecy, for an hour, a day, a month, and a year. And remember, a year in prophecy, when it says, a day in prophecy is a year. Now, sometimes, like the children of Israel, their captivity, they just flat out said 70 years. And that was 70 years. But if it said 70 days, it would be 70 years. So when it says a day, a month, and a year, anyway, a year would be 360 years because the Jewish calendar would be 360 days, a day for a year. So anyway, a year's worth of days. And that if you add that all up, that's how long the Ottoman Empire lasted. They figured that out. So anyway, I know I lost people because of that, but the truth has to be told, and you have to hear it, whether if you don't want to, turn it off. But I really encourage you to listen because it involves your future. The Pope, which all the reformers said the papacy was the Antichrist, the beast that's going to issue the mark. The Pope went to Cuba, and they're going to kiss and make up with the Russian Orthodox people who broke away from the Catholic Church long ago. Never going to go together. But anyway, they're meeting. So he's in Mexico now. Just recently, I guess the oldest one here, he said he wants to redistribute the wealth of the world. The Pope did. Pope Francis. And he was pretty mild when he came to America, but he said this before. And anyway, but he wants to redistribute the world's wealth through a central banking system that has morals. And of course, he wants the papacy has a bank and pretty much wants that to be the bank of the world. And it will be eventually within the next few years. It's getting there. That was, I don't know, he'd said that many times before. I think the most recent was maybe 6 months ago. But recently, just in the past, he came to America in September. And actually, I think this was before he came to America. Was it September? Yeah, it was the end of September. Before he came here, I believe he said this, and he said it afterwards, that Jesus failed on the cross. Jesus was a failure. The cross was a failure. And he repeated that a month later. I'm trying to think that was before he came to America. I think he did it afterwards, too. I think he did it 3 times. But he said Jesus was a failure, the failure of the cross. You can search this and find out. And he also has said very recently, past several weeks, that there's danger in a personal relationship with Jesus. He said it. I heard him say it. He's on video. You can go to YouTube. You can find these videos of the Pope saying this stuff. You just search for, Pope, end of the world, Antichrist stuff. Stuff will come up. Now, a lot of it is not very good. It's not biblical. So you have to I can pick it out now that I know. I mean, just a few years ago, just 7, 8 years ago, I didn't know anything about Revelation. And now I think I know a lot. It's been opened up to me. But the Pope said, it's dangerous and you can't have a close personal relationship with Jesus except through the church. You have to go through the Catholic Church. Not just any church. You have to go through the Pope. You have to go through the Catholic Church to have a personal relationship with Jesus. And even then, it's not a good thing. You need a personal relationship with Mary and with the papacy, with the priests, but not with Jesus. But it's just dangerous. He said it's dangerous to have a personal relationship with Jesus. I heard him say it. Well, actually, he said it in Latin, and I'm assuming the translators said it at the bottom, but with the typed in letters at the bottom. But he said it. Now, that goes against everything Protestantism holds, and it goes against what the Bible says, too. Absolutely, completely. But that's what we're going for. We're going for religious laws. There will be religious laws. Believe it or not, I never thought we would be doing what we're doing now when I was a kid, when I was in my 20s. And it wasn't that long ago. It's just 30 years ago. So, 20s and 30s. It's 30 years ago because I'm 60. So, anyway, things have changed, and they're changing rapidly. They're increasing at an increasing rate. All the religions are becoming one, and technically two. And you may not like what they're becoming, what they're focusing on. And I will talk about that, what the mark is. But after the break, we're coming up on the hour break, and after that, I'm going to talk about a really controversial subject. Somebody asked me about, do I think that the Jews are going to be something in the future? Everybody's looking to the Jews for a new temple and this and Temple Mount and a Red Bull and stuff that occasionally comes up and all this stuff in Israel. And I don't think so at all. The Bible doesn't teach that. So I'm going to get into have the Jews been cut off? We'll read the Bible and see what the Bible says about that after the break. This is Agenda 21 Talk. That's the first hour of the show. Next hour coming up. Call-in number on this February the 16th 2016 is 512-646-1984. Everybody have a good rest up, get something to drink, go to the restroom, and then come back and call in. We'll talk about this. 512-646-1984.
A little too tall Then we pack.
Welcome back. This is Agenda 21 Talk on this February the 16th, 2016. Let me read some headlines before we do that. First, the first one is Pope Francis to stand with migrants at the U.S. border. He's our news article there. He's supposed to be there. I don't know if he was there today or if it'll be tomorrow. I know he's in Mexico and he's meeting people, but he's supposed to be here. Wanted to say this too before we get into the Bible with sort of the same thing. Obama recently went to a mosque and he said Thomas Jefferson read the Quran, had a Quran, and he implied that Thomas Jefferson was Muslim. And it's true. There's an article came out. This is on in WND.com. And it's true. Thomas Jefferson and John Adams both got a Quran and read it. Why did they do that? That's true. That's a half truth or half lie, whatever you want to call it. It's a kernel of truth that they build a whole story in your mind around. And he tried to portray Jefferson as being a closet Muslim. Well, it turns out that the Ottoman Empire was still going on. Turns out the young United States had shipping, commercial shipping after we won our independence, supposedly from Britain. Had commercial shipping. Well, when they went into the Mediterranean, these Muslims would capture the ships and hold them for ransom. It got to be a problem by the time Jefferson was president, and John Adams helped him try to negotiate this a peace with them. And we couldn't figure out what was going on. And remember, keep this in mind. I'm not against Muslims. They're wonderful people. They're people just like us that have joined this religion. Some of it's forced on them because if they're not Muslim, they get killed. But this comes from a guy named historian David Barton, who wrote a book called The Jefferson Lies. And this is in response to Obama. This article is in response to Obama going to a mosque and saying Jefferson had a Quran. Okay. Barton argues the author of the Declaration of Independence had no illusions about Islam being a religion of peace. President Obama talked about how much Islam is a religion of peace, and I've read the Quran. It is not peaceful. And this is certainly a mantra he's carried for a number of years. Now, Thomas Jefferson would specifically disagree with him over that, and it's very clear in Jefferson's writings. Even though the president invoked Jefferson saying Jefferson's been called a Muslim, I've been called a Muslim, we've got a lot in common. They really don't have a lot in common in actual fact. Obama said they do. They don't. In 1783, we finished the American Revolution. In 1784, we had to deal with Muslim terrorists attacking Americans, said Barton, referring to the Barbary pirates. He explained how Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, and Benjamin Franklin were all designated to negotiate with Muslim representatives in Europe and attempt to halt the fighting. Eventually, Adams and Jefferson had an opportunity to question a Muslim ambassador as to why Islamic forces were attacking Americans. They asked him a very profound question, Barton said. They said, "We don't understand why you're attacking us. Americans have never done anything to Muslims. We've never bothered your nations. Why are the unprovoked attacks?" And the Muslim ambassador answered him. They wrote it down and they sent it to the State Department. It's still there. You can see the letter to this day. And Jefferson records, they attack us because that's what the Quran says, requires. That's what their Quran requires. Their Quran requires that we as infidels must be subdued. They have to enslave us. They have to attack us. And they have to get killed. And if they get killed while attacking us, that's their straight ticket to heaven. And Adams and Jefferson kind of go, "You're kidding me. You go to heaven if you kill people?" Barton said both Jefferson and Adams investigated the Islamic faith for themselves. Jefferson and Adams both got Qurans. They read the Quran for themselves to see how the enemy thought. Today, we don't encourage people to read the Quran. We just tell people it's a religion of peace. But don't read the Quran for yourself, we tell them. I tell you, get it, read it. It's a hard read. But it says exactly what I just read. It says anybody that's not Muslim is an infidel, and you can attack them, take their stuff, kill them, take their women, beating. There's another article about a mufti or Inman explain how it's okay to beat your wife if you don't break any bones or cause her bruises or make her ugly. You can beat her if she disagrees with you or stands up to you, but you have to come to her peacefully first. Anyway, that's in the Quran too. Thomas Jefferson would go on to order a military expedition against the Barbary pirates as the third president of the United States. And though little remembered today, America's first fight with Islamic terrorists represented a huge challenge for the young republic. So they read the Quran, realized this guy's true. This is in the religion. So the only thing we can do is force. So they sent the Marines in. And if there's a line in the Marine hymn from the Halls of Montezuma, which refers to a Mexico expedition, but that came in the 1830s in the war with Mexico. but it goes from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli. Well, that shores of Tripoli came first, and that is the Barbary pirates. The Marines were sent in. They subdued some of the Barbary pirates, and they left our shipping alone after that. So anyway, wanted to read that. Bunch of other stuff. But before I get into the Bible, Jeb Bush hit between the eyes with sensational allegations. This guy who wrote the book, Roger Stone and St. John Hunt wrote a book, Jeb Bush and the Bush crime family, the inside story of the American dynasty. Go to WND.com. You'll find this book, talk about it. They talk about how the grandfather Bush financed Hitler, even said he did, working for Prescott Bush there. Played a role in financing the rise of Adolf Hitler. Stone and Hunt write on page 92 that shortly after Pearl Harbor, under the Trading with the Enemies Act, Franklin Roosevelt shut down the Union Banking Corporation, a bank Prescott Bush ran as part of his duties at Brown Brothers Harriman for the benefit of Fritz Tyson, a German. Anyway, read that. It's good stuff. Talks about things you may already know about the Bushes. I don't know. University of Texas police give preacher a citation for offending students. This is the Daily Caller. And a guy was preaching, and some of the students said, "I don't like what you're preaching. That offends me." So they turned him into the campus police, and the campus police write him a ticket. And there's a video of it. And that's the dailycaller.com, DAILY, dailycaller.com. It's times we live in. If something offends you, turn it into the police. That's illegal for anyone to offend you. Before we go on, let me read this too. This is an AP news report. Migrants attacked around Calais, France. Tinderbox of tensions. And mysterious armed groups are on the prowl, targeting migrants in night attacks in Calais and elsewhere in northern France, sowing fear among the displaced travelers living in squalid slums and deepening concerns. The city is becoming a tinderbox of anti-migrant, anti-Muslim rage that's fueling a budding nationalist movement. Now, I'm reading that only because a lot of the migrants that hadn't been doing that in France, that has been reported, but in Germany and the Netherlands and Sweden, migrants are attacking women, raping them, doing all kinds of things. And this is a backlash. So there's a struggle, there's a tension, and there's going to be a huge struggle going on in the world over Islam versus really Protestantism. And, well, there's a lot of similarities between Catholicism and Islam. Some people say Catholicism started Islam. We've talked about it before. But whether they started it or not, Islam, even if they did start it, Islam kind of went their own way. They were bad children. But they're coming back. I mean, you can get pictures of Yasser Arafat bending down and kissing the Pope's ring, and other Muslim leaders doing that same thing. So while some of the Muslims may be bad children, others know who is in charge of them. So anyway, I wanted to say that. Another quick story. Rogue scientists could exploit gene editing technology. So that's a big deal now. Some people in Britain have gotten a license to modify human babies genetically. And senior geneticists and bioethnists warned on Friday that they fear rogue scientists operating outside the bounds of law, and agreed with U.S. intelligence chiefs' assertion this week that gene editing technology could have a huge and potentially dangerous consequences. And in response to that, the person who got the license to manipulate human babies, embryos, says, we're just doing it to not actually make a human race a superior human race. We just want to know about early development. And that's all it is. This one I'm going to save under my climate study things. Study shows global warming slows sea level rise. And that study comes from NASA. A prominent global warming skeptic is marveling at a new NASA report that concludes the purported human-caused changes in the climate now, after years of being blamed for rising the sea level, is actually slowing down the rise. NASA has said that the global warming stuff is slowing down the rise of sea levels. At the same time, there's a story from CNN that 150,000 penguins have died in Antarctica because they were stranded by a vast iceberg that became lodged off the coast of Antarctica 6 years ago and has only been growing. In other words, the ice has increased in Antarctica to the point these penguins have starved to death because they can't, they get out of the water. They have to walk to the middle of Antarctica in a certain place to lay their eggs. Well, now the ice has grown so thick they can't get there. They run out of food and they die. 150,000 penguins have died because the ice in Antarctica is growing and it's cutting them off. So I just wanted to mention that. take it for what it's worth. CNN reported it's got to be true. And in the law regime, online legal publishers squabble over the right to copyright the law. This is another Ars Technical article. Two big legal research companies are battling in federal court over the right to exclusively publish the law. In this case, the Georgia Administrative Rules and Regulations. Georgia Administrative Rules and Regulations. Poor people. So they want to copyright it. So is the law copyrightable? Or is it administrative rules and regulations copyrightable? If it's copyrightable, it's commercial. It's not for me. I don't have anything to do with it if it's copywritten. So the lawsuit, and you get a PDF version of it, comes as states across the nation partner with legal research companies to offer exclusive publishing and licensing deals for digitizing and making available online states reams of laws and regulations. Coming up on a break, this is Agenda 21 Talk, and I promise after the break we'll talk about the Israel. Who is Israel? Is it the Jews in Israel? Got a country named Israel. Are they the Israel from the Bible? And have they been cut off? Does the Bible say they've been cut off? Oh, it couldn't possibly be. Well, let's read the Bible. Call in number 512-646-1984.
Now.
This is the Logos Radio Network.
Welcome back, everyone. As promised, we'll talk about it. First, I want to mention who is Israel. I'm not going to get into a great deal of detail on who Israel is. We'll have to do it at a later time. But if you look, there are a lot of promises made to Israel. If you read the Bible, the book of Matthew used the word fulfilled a lot. Let me say this first. If you want to know a good study, a good presentation, you can go to YouTube. A guy named David Asscherick, Asscherick. David Asscherick, Asscherick. Search for that in YouTube. Look for his one on Who is Israel. There are probably others, but he's just all Bible-based. David Asscherick, this was done maybe 10 years ago. David Asscherick has talked really fast. He's calmed down now a lot. It's a little slower, more concerned, but he loves what he's doing. He gets excited. He talks very fast, and it's a hoot to watch. But briefly, all of the prophecies. Now, Israel, let's just say this. Real briefly, I keep wanting to go back further and further. Who is Israel? Israel was a man. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Well, Jacob lied, deceived, he got that in birthright. He had to go away. He wrestled one night. He had an experience with God. He wrestled with a man, turned out to be, we say, God. And so the one he wrestled with, he had him bless him. Jacob had him bless him. The one he wrestled with changed his name to Israel. So Israel was the one man at that one time. That's what he was. Now, he had 12 sons, and from them, the 12 tribes of Israel grew out of that. So they were known as the children of Israel. So fast forward, a lot of promises were made. Read the New Testament. I won't go into the detail in this presentation, but if you read the New Testament, you find there's the word fulfilled a lot. And in fact, one of the keys is that in the book of Luke, chapter 4, Jesus is starting his ministry. Luke goes into a lot of detail about the birth, but in the history and all that. So he starts his ministry. So Jesus goes to, he came to Nazareth. I'm reading verse 14 of chapter 16. And he came to Nazareth where he had been brought up. And as his custom was, he went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day and stood up for to read. So, they handed him a scroll. He asked for a scroll. He opened to the prophet Isaiah and he read verse 18. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he hath anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He hath sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives, and recovering of sight of the blind, to set at liberty them that are bruised, to preach the acceptable year of the Lord. And there's actually one more thing that's going to happen in the next few years that Jesus is going to fulfill, but he stopped there. And he closed the book, and he gave it again to the minister, and he sat down. And all the eyes were upon him that were in the synagogue, were fastened on him. All the eyes in the synagogue were fastened on him. He sat down, took a breath. Everybody's listening. You could hear a pin drop. And then Jesus said, this day is this scripture fulfilled in your ears. What the nation of Israel did not accomplish, they failed, they sinned, just like Adam, they failed. What the nation of Israel, the children of Israel, failed to do, Jesus fulfilled. If you go through over and over again, even through Paul, all of the prophecies of Israel, promises of Israel, children of Israel were fulfilled in Jesus. Jesus said, I am Israel. What you failed to do, I am doing. So Jesus is Israel, and we are grafted to the tree of the children of Israel. And we'll just get into that. Let's read the rest of it. That's who Israel is. We'll get into it. So what happened to Israel? So Daniel, let's go to Daniel. Let's go back. Now this is what I've just collected some stuff. So there's more, a lot more to this. You could add 100 more verses to this. They all say the same thing. They paint this picture. Daniel 9:20. This comes after the 2300-day prophecy. Daniel didn't understand it. He didn't understand the little horn, and he didn't like what he saw with that little horn persecuting the saints. Didn't like that. Made him sick. So Gabriel had to come down and give him another dream. And this is the response that Daniel gave, this wonderful prayer at the first of Daniel 9, where he says, we've all sinned. He doesn't say they hadn't sinned and there's those, my brothers and sisters, they're a big bunch of sinners. No, he said, we've sinned. He accepts responsibility for it. And so he's ready for the next explanation. He didn't understand it. It says in the Bible, Daniel didn't understand that first prophecy. So it comes to him again. Okay. And while I was speaking and praying and confessing my sin and the sin of my people, Israel, and presenting my supplication before the Lord, my God, for the holy mountain of my God, yea, while I was speaking in prayer, even the man Gabriel, whom I had seen in the vision at the beginning, being caused to fly swiftly, touched me about the time of the evening oblation. And he informed me and talked with me and said, O Daniel, I am now come forth to give thee skill and understanding. At the beginning of thy supplications, the commandment came forth, and I have come to show, for thou art greatly beloved. Therefore, understand the matter and consider the vision. 70 weeks are determined, and this word there is as Strong's as a kupfek, a primitive root meaning to cut off. So are determined or cut off from the 2300-day prophecy, the one that came before that he didn't understand. So are determined upon thy people and upon the holy city to finish. Now there's 8 things here that have to be done. To finish the transgression and to make an end of sins and to make reconciliation for iniquity and to bring in everlasting righteousness and to set up the vision and the prophecy and to anoint the most holy. Now, who is this for? Thy people. Who's Daniel's people? Well, the children of Israel. This is for them. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth, the commandment to restore and build Jerusalem unto the Messiah, the Prince of Peace, shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. The street shall be built again and the wall, even in troublous times. And after 62 weeks shall the Messiah be cut off, but not for himself. And the people of the prince shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, talking about 70 AD, and the end thereof shall be a flood, and unto the end of the war desolations are determined. And he, the Messiah, shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, and in the midst of the week he, the Messiah, shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. And for the overspreading of abominations, he, the Messiah, shall make it desolate, even until the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. So if you just briefly, again, don't have a lot of time, but it mentions 70 and then 62 weeks. That's 62. So 62 plus 7 is 69. And it mentions the third week, the last week, the 70th week. The Messiah will start his ministry, be cut off in midweek, and then at the end of the 70 weeks, because it said 70 weeks are determined upon thy people. At the end of the 70 weeks, if Israel hasn't accepted Jesus, they are to be cut off, ungrafted from the tree. So here we go. Well, I've talked about that before, and that's anyway. I'm going to start with Daniel because Daniel lays out the time prophecies about important events pertaining to Israel. In the prophecy, when a day is used, it means a year. Now, Jesus himself talks about Herod. They come and say something about Herod to him, and he says, go tell that old fox that I will be here today, tomorrow, and the third day. Was he only 3 days that Christ was going to be there? No, it was 3 years. 6 months into his ministry, he said, go tell Herod I'll be here for 3 years. But he used the word day. So anyway, day for a year prophecy. This has been known since the Reformation was accepted by most, if not all, the reformers. I think it's all the reformers, every one of them. It can be proved by its application in Daniel. Now, chapter 9 of Daniel, verse 25, describes the first 7-year period, when then the 62 weeks, 62 plus 7 is 69. Its beginning point is the decree to rebuild Jerusalem, which is mentioned in Ezra and Nehemiah, and was in 457 BC. Now, a week is made up of 7 days multiplied by 7, that's 7 times 7, or 49 years. It's no coincidence that 49 years after...
Foot-in-mouth syndrome. We've all been there. Whether you're on the giving end or the receiving end of a hurtful comment, words are hard to take back. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht, and I'll be back in a moment with some things that should never roll off your tongue.
Your search engine is watching you, recording all your searches and creating a massive database of your personal information. That's creepy, but it doesn't have to be that way. Startpage.com is the world's most private search engine. Startpage doesn't store your IP address, make a record of your searches, or use tracking cookies, and they're third-party certified. If you don't like Big Brother spying on you, start over with Startpage. Great search results and total privacy. Startpage.com, the world's most private search engine.
In social situations, there are some things you should never say. These top my list. When is the baby due? Never say this to a woman. Imagine the embarrassment if she simply gained a few pounds. Don't talk baby unless she brings it up. You look good for your age, or you look great after losing all that weight, are indirect insults. Instead, just say, you look terrific. What's your secret? Finally, no matter how bad someone looks, never say, you look awful. That'll just make the person feel worse. Instead, say, how are things going? If they want to talk, that'll open the door. And those are today's tips for taming your tongue. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht. More news and information at CatherineAlbrecht.com.
You are listening to the Logos Radio Network. LogosRadioNetwork.com.
Now, welcome back. Well, I'll just pick up where I left off. So Cyrus issued the decree in 457 BC, 49, 7 times 7. 49 years later, they finished the temple. And then 62 weeks, remember it's 7, the prophecy was 7 days and then 62. 62 weeks of years, 434 years, in other words, later, was 27 AD. And that's when Jesus walked up to John and said, I need to be baptized, and started his ministry, 27 AD. So the 69th week is when Jesus started his ministry. That adds up. It's perfect. It adds up. But it's not just that. That's first off, that's one thing. It predicted when the temple would be rebuilt. And then it predicted when Jesus would start his ministry. Then it would predicted the crucifixion 3.5 years later. And 3.5 years after that, Stephen was stoned. And the high priest tore his clothes, and they decided no more. We're going to go to war with the Christians, people who follow Jesus. So I've got this document I wrote up, and if anybody's interested in it, email me. I'd be glad to send it to you. And try to make it 90% the Bible and only 10% what I talk. This is a little more than that, but most of the time I've got other documents I can give you that's just Bible quotes after Bible quotes, and you'll see the pattern that emerges. And just be sure I haven't taken anything out of context. So if you want this document, email me, agenda21talk@yahoo.com, and I'll send it to you. See what you think about it. I mean, it's just right out of the Bible. A lot of people have these weird things. Most people don't even understand Daniel. I've seen other people write books, and I've read parts of them on Daniel, and they don't. The Bible tells one continuous story. It's not, like I thought years ago, it's not a collection of individual stories culminating in Jesus returning. No. It's all one thread. Everything's related to everything else. It's highly interconnected, and it's way cool. And because it's so highly interconnected, it's all these different people wrote these books. Even Nebuchadnezzar, a non-Jew former pagan, wrote a part of the Bible. So they all carry the same theme all the way through. It's one continuous thing. You can't take it out of that stream that it's in. Okay. Going to skip some stuff here. Israel is supposed to be a light on a hill to bring truth about God and Jesus to the entire world. They were to live the precepts of God by the 10 Commandments, by example and by witnessing, to bring that truth to the entire world. They failed time and again. The Gentiles, guided by the 12 apostles, however, took the gospel and the truth into the entire world and lived by its precepts. In truth, they suffered for it, but continued to do the holy work anyway. It could be argued that God promised great things for Israel, the nation. I'm going to put that in there. That they should be made a great nation, and God would never forsake them. The Bible, however, clearly says by the prophet Moses that for every blessing God promised Israel, there was an accompanying curse. And I've got verses after this I can read. It can be seen. See, I got to misspell that. It can't be seen in many places in the Old Testament that everywhere a blessing or a promise is made, another promise is made that is often called a curse. The blessings would fall if Israel kept the Ten Commandments, and the curse would overtake them when they did not. In 34 AD, the curse God foretold the children of Israel finally happened. Moses warned of the event. Daniel prophesied the date. Stephen, Saul, and others were witnesses to the branch being pruned off and another branch grafted in. As Paul says in Romans 2, if the Jews are synonymous with Israel, then the new Israel, the spiritual Israel, is now anyone who believes and follows Jesus. We are spiritual Israel because Jesus is Israel. And we are his children. We are followers of Jesus. We are Israel. Arise, shine, for the light has come, and the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee. Isaiah 61. Christ is coming with power and great glory. He is coming with his own glory and the glory of the Father. The holy angels will attend him on his way. While all the world is plunged in darkness, there will be light in every dwelling of saints. They will catch the first light of his second appearing. The unsullied light will shine from his splendor, and Christ the Redeemer will be admired by all who have served him. While the wicked flee, Christ's followers will rejoice in his presence. Then it is that the redeemed from among men will receive their promised inheritance. Thus, God's promise for Israel will meet its literal fulfillment in the second coming. That which God purposes, man is powerless to annul. Even amid the working of evil, God's purposes have been moving steadily forward to their accomplishment. It is thus with the house of Israel throughout history of a divided monarchy. It is thus with the spiritual Israel today. So here's some Bible verses. The first is just before Passover when Jesus is crucified. He is the third Passover of his ministry. He is going toward the temple and seeing the Passover festivities. He said, "Verily I say unto you, all these things shall come to this generation. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, thou that killest the prophets and stonest them which are sent unto thee. How often I would have gathered thy children together, even as a hen gathereth her chickens under her wings, and you would not. Behold, your house is left unto you desolate." What does that mean? I read that before here. Whose house is that? Who's we talking about? Something about the temple, the house of God there. The temple is going to be destroyed 70 AD, but he's also talking about the house, you talk about the house of David or the house of Judah. That's what he's talking about. Earlier, when Jesus meets the centurion who says, to paraphrase, "You don't need to come to my house to heal my servant. Just say the words and he will be healed." To which Jesus replied, "Verily I say unto you," this is Matthew 8, "Verily I say unto you, I have not found so great faith, no, not in Israel. And I say unto you that many shall come from the east and the west and shall sit down with Abraham and Isaac and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. But the children of the kingdom shall be cast into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth." Who are the children of the kingdom that Jesus just said ain't going to be there? Now, Jews can get into heaven, and there'll be a lot of Jews in heaven that came through Jesus. All the sacrifices in the Old Testament were types to show people that Jesus, when you sacrifice a dove or a lamb, that was Jesus. You were killing because of your sins. The lamb and the dove didn't do anything. Some people read the Bible, I don't know, off on a tangent here, but some people read the Bible and say, look, it's hokey religion because you have to sacrifice animals to pay for your sins. Does the Bible say that? Does the Bible specifically says it's not the killing of the animal that does away with your sin? Specifically says that. People don't read that. Acts 1, that's 9:1. "And Saul, yet breathing out threatenings and slaughter against the disciples of the Lord, went unto the high priest and desired of him letters to Damascus to the synagogues, that if he found any of this way, whether they were men or women, that he might bring them bound to Jerusalem." He's making war with Christians. You can't have a chosen people who are making war with the Messiah and the Messiah's people. You just can't do that. Romans 2:28, "For he is not a Jew, which is one outwardly, neither circumcision which is outward in the flesh, but he is a Jew which is one inwardly, and circumcision of the heart in the spirit and not the letter, whose praise is not of men but of God. In other words, we're spiritual Israel. Romans 2:20, that was Romans 2:28. Deuteronomy, behold, I set before you this day a blessing and a curse. A blessing if you obey the commandments of the Lord your God, which I command you this day. And a curse if you will not obey the commandments of the Lord God, but turn aside of the way which I command you this day, to go after other gods which ye have not known. That was 11:26 of Deuteronomy. 31 says the same thing, blessing and a curse. Coming up on a break. This may be controversial because a lot of people, Israel as a nation, we should love them and care for them, but a lot of people think the end time's going to have something to do with Israel, and the Bible doesn't say that. 512-646-1984. Call in. We'd love to hear from you.
Easy.
Seems like yesterday.
Welcome back. This is the last segment of the show, so if you've got anything, comments or questions, call in 512-646-1984. It's February the 16th. So call in. We'd love to hear from you. All right. One of the clearest ones, a bunch of them. And I got this document. If you want this document, which is just mostly Bible quotes, email me at agenda21talk@yahoo.com, and I'll send it to you along with some other stuff. And any stuff we can have. I always wanted to be a clearinghouse, just to send stuff out to people. And, a lot of people sent me stuff, and I'm not holding on it forever. I'd be glad to give it to anyone who needs it. This is Romans 11:16. This is New Testament stuff from Saul, who became Paul. Starting in verse 16, for if the fruit be holy, the lump holy also, and if the root be holy, so are the branches. And if some of the branches are broken off, and thou, being a wild olive tree, were grafted in among them, and with them partakes of the root and fatness of the olive tree, boast not against the branches. But if thou boast, thou bearest not the root, but the root thee. In other words, you're not the root, you're just a branch that's grafted in. Don't say you're the root. Thou wilt say then, the branches were broken off that I might be grafted in. Well, because of unbelief they were broken off. And thou standest by faith, but not high-minded, but fear. For if God spared not the natural branches, lest he should also spare not thee. Take heed, they've added, take heed lest he should also spare not thee. Behold, therefore, the goodness and severity of God. On them which fell, severity, but toward thee goodness, if thou continue in his goodness. Otherwise thou shalt also be cut off. Kind of kills the once saved, always saved. But in particular, he's talking about the children of Israel are cut off. The natural branches are cut off. He spared them not. He cut them off so you could be grafted in. They were grafted off because of unbelief. That's what he said. He just said that. And there's more. And they also, if they abide not still in unbelief, they shall be grafted in. So that if you're a Jew, you can be grafted back in if you believe. Now you have to believe in Jesus. For God is able to graft them in again. For if thou were cut off of the olive tree, which is wild by nature, and were grafted contrary to nature into a good olive tree, how much more shall these, which be the natural branches, be grafted into their own olive tree? In other words, he's saying, just kind of recapitulating what he said earlier, you had no right to be on that tree because you weren't a member of the children of Israel, yet they were cut off and you were grafted in. For I would not, brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery, lest you should be wise in your own conceits, that blindness in part has happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles be come in. And so shall all Israel shall be saved, as it is written, there shall be come out of Zion the deliverer, and shall turn away ungodliness from Jacob. Remember, Jesus is Israel, and we are spiritual Israel because we follow Jesus. We have faith like Abraham had faith. We have faith, so we are spiritual Israel with Jesus, and we'll all be saved. For this is my covenant unto them, when I shall take away their sins. As concerning the gospel, they are enemies for your sakes, but as touching the election, they are beloved for the Father's sakes. Got some spaces that we're missing. So he's saying, don't be high-minded that you were grafted in and think bad of the Jews who were grafted off. They can be grafted in on an individual basis if they believe in Jesus. Simple as that. And think about it. Here we still have Israel today that rejects Jesus. They don't believe in Jesus. They persecute Christians. If you're a Jew and you turn into a Christian, they persecute you mightily. I've talked to Jews who have become Christians from Israel and they came over here. So they crucified Jesus, and they would crucify him again today, and yet they're supposed to be chosen people going into heaven just because they're Jews? And I don't know. I won't go into too much more about it, but that's what it says. That's what the Bible says. I'm not making this up. This is Romans 11:25. For I would not, brethren, that ye be ignorant of the mystery. I just read that, actually. I've got that in twice. Didn't I do that? Yeah. Yeah, I've got that in there twice. Oh, here we go. I'm sorry. I'm kind of editing this as I'm reading it. I realized I did this twice. So let me do it. Okay. For the gifts and calling of God are without repentance. Psalms 18, verse 22. For such as is blessed of him shall inherit the earth, and they that are cursed of him shall be cut off. It's in Psalms. Proof of a day for a year prophecy in Luke 13:32. And he said unto them, Go ye and tell that fox, this is Herod, behold, I cast out devils, and I do curses today and tomorrow, and the third day I shall be perfected. Was he perfected in 3 days? No, it was 3 years. Day for a year. Okay. Ezekiel and Numbers, and I guess anyway. So there's a lot more verses. I'll have to add. Work in progress. But that's what happened to Israel. Daniel predicted it. It's a prophecy on Israel coming out of the 2300-day year prophecy. So if that 2300-day year prophecy accurately predicted when the temple would be rebuilt, when Jesus would start his ministry, when he would be crucified, when Stephen would be stoned and the high priest would rip his clothes, the end of the 2300-day year prophecy would be an important date too. Well, when does it end? It ended in 1844. Sorry. I mean, a lot of people flip the switch and turn it off, but there it is. Here you have a prophecy that accurately predicted 4 things in a row, and it ended in 1844. So something happened in 1844, and that's, if you keep reading Daniel, it says, then will the sanctuary be cleansed. So they used to think that meant the world would come to an end. When it didn't come to an end, then they read it again, and they realized there's a sanctuary in heaven. Jesus must have gone to the sanctuary in heaven and cleansed it. Or he's in the process of cleansing it now. And I don't have much time to go into that. But anyway, that's the prophecy. That's Daniel. We're there. Now, the Revelation says there's time no more. So there's no more time prophecies. There was, at the end of Daniel, he talks about a couple of more prophecies. We won't go into it. The years, there's a 13, what is it? Where are we? 1,290 days and 1,335 days prophecy, or year prophecy. They actually have been fulfilled. It actually, of course, there was I think it's 7 times the phrase time, times, and half a time are mentioned. 1,260 year prophecy of the beast is mentioned. We don't have enough time to talk about who the beast is that issues the mark, the Antichrist. I hate to use the word Antichrist because people go all googly over it. But anyway, that's what the Bible says about the children of Israel as a nation. We are Israel. Jesus is Israel, and we're part of him. And so we're grafted in. If you disagree, hey, call in. We got a few minutes left. 512-646-1984. I know it's controversial. I know there's a whole bunch of people, even Seventh-day Sabbath keepers, who think Israel's the people who do WND think Israel's a big to-do in the end times. But we just read it didn't. So anyway, I hate to burst your bubble, but anyway, the Pope has been to Israel. The president of Israel has met with him and is meeting with him and doing things. So there's there's going to be a big calamity in the future. We'll have to talk about this some more. October the 31st, 2017, will be the end of the Protestant Reformation, according to Catholicism and the powers that be, and there will be moral laws will be passed, even in the United States, after that, partly because of the calamity that comes about. And there's stuff in the news about Japan has negative interest rates now. In other words, they're charging you to keep money in their bank. You put money in a Japanese bank, and they're going to take some of it, more than just fees. They're going to charge fees too, they're going to charge you an interest rate to keep money in the bank. So other banks are doing that. Greece is still having problems. They had riots just last week. Russia's still bombing Syria, killing civilians. They bombed a hospital just last week. There's strife. There's wars. The Muslims, Islams are going all throughout the world now because of the refugee crisis in Syria that was created. And so they're Islamifying, and there's going to be a large, I just read, people in France are fighting. So there's going to be a big strife between Islam and Protestants. And the Pope is going to step in and make everything better. He's going to say that. And then in the midst of all this, the calamity and the strife and all that stuff, Satan is going to come down and imitate Jesus. It says that in Thessalonians. Paul says it. Do not marvel, Satan will appear as a being of light. And so he's going to imitate Jesus. And if you're not grounded in the Bible, the stuff I just talked about may not be a salvational issue, but if you're not grounded in the Bible, you can be fooled. And you will be fooled, and you could voluntarily give up your belief in Jesus. We'll talk about that, once saved, always saved, next time. But you may be led astray. You may get the mark just because you were willfully ignorant of what the Bible says. So that's our show for this week. Hopefully we'll get to talk to you next week. Everybody have a good, safe, blessed week. And we'll catch you next week. Maybe Shannon will be on. I don't know. I'm trying to get him on. Try tonight again. But everybody have a good, safe, blessed week. Read your Bible. Look up David Asherick on YouTube and see who Israel is.